Welcome back to your final segment of Covenant Church Planter Training. You've come such a long way since orientation. I hope you felt equipped and encouraged, and equally importantly, I hope you've developed lifelong friends for the journey from here. The only thing we have left to do is to talk about your grand opening in Stage 4. This video will cover the basics of Stage 4, how to know when you're ready for this stage, the overall goals of Stage 4, and the benchmarks you're aiming for. The next video will walk you through how to create the 3-month launch plan that is included in your well-conceived plan. So to kick us off in this final segment, I'm going to pass it off to Jamie Staples, our trainer for Stage 4.
Hey, my name is Jamie Staples. My family and I planted Renew Church in Eau Claire, Wisconsin in 2015. I'm married to Emily. We have 3 amazing kids, and I think it was around this section in the training when I went through it 7 or 8 years ago, when I was pretty overwhelmed and I was wondering how on earth all of this stuff was going to come together. I want to encourage you, before we get into Stage 4, take one step at a time, build one layer at a time, and watch Jesus do what Jesus does. See, an essential verse that has stuck with me all the way from when I was running away from my call to plant to this process of slowly growing systems in the church to launching to everything that comes after is found in Hebrews 11:10. You know the section on faith. In verse 10, for he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. I have come back to that verse more times than I can count. When I was fundraising, when I was working on systems, continuing to work on systems, when we were launching, when we were looking for a space, when people leave, when people come, when it gets hard, when you aren't sure how you're going to keep going, when you're celebrating all that Jesus is doing through and in your church. It all starts with these simple steps of faith, doing the role that Jesus has empowered and equipped you to do, and trusting in him, because he is the architect and builder of your church. Today, we're going to be going through the final stage in the 4-stage launch, your grand opening in Stage 4. But before we do that, let's briefly review. Stage 1 was about launch team development, gathering a team of mission friends to help you plant this church. In Stage 2, you work towards Stage 2W. You move to monthly preview services and establish a solid outreach rhythm. In Stage 3, you move to weekly services, evaluating and improving all your systems and working out all the kinks. And now you're ready for Stage 4, your grand opening. So I remember our launch day fondly. Leading up to our original launch day, we had a person that we thought was going to lead worship for us back out about 3 weeks before our launch service. I had a death in my family, and there were so many little things that just weren't going well. Has anybody in this training talked to you yet about spiritual warfare? Because as you launch, remember, we are light breaking into the darkness. So you can expect spiritual warfare to take place. Take care of yourself spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Surround yourself with people who are supporting you and praying for you. And no matter what comes up, keep taking one step of faith forward, one foot in front of another. See, we pushed our launch date back a little bit because of all the things that were going on, and we just weren't ready. So we set our target, Easter. It was an amazing day. The weather was perfect. I rolled in that day with a 104-degree fever, and I could barely remember what I was saying in the sermon, and it was just magical. I think you can maybe sense some sarcasm there, but honestly, the launch day was amazing, fever and all. Because it was amazing to see all this work. It was the culmination of what Jesus has been building for months and months. And it was great to come together to celebrate. It was incredible. And there are still people at Renew today that showed up for the first time on that launch day, started attending regularly, had no background of church, found their home, and have been transformed by Jesus. So let's review how you know you're ready for your grand opening. Here's a few benchmarks that you want to look for. First, you are consistently seeing 80 to 90 people at your weekly services. You're aggressively evaluating and tweaking your system so that everything is now running at a B+ or A- range. You've got increasing numbers and percentages of people serving in the ministry, and 50% of your adults are involved in small groups. If you can say yes to all of that, then you're ready for your grand opening. Here are the primary goals for stage 4. First is to launch strong. Everything you've worked for through this training will shape how strong you launch. It's in the work of fleshing out your systems so they actually work in real time. It's building your core and your community. It's finding the right leaders to lead the systems. And here's a reminder about your leaders. You may be tempted and you might be desperate for leaders. You probably are as you prepare for your launch. And remember some of the axioms of church planning leadership. Make sure you are empowering healthy leaders. Can I underline healthy leaders that are missional? And give people tasks, not titles, until they can prove that they can be with you and that they are healthy and they can help you build a healthy church culture. That is everything. The systems that you really want to have dialed in for stage 4 are the gathering-centric systems: worship, kids, connections, stewardship. The work that you're doing now is laying the foundation for a strong and healthy launch. The second is launch large. You want to launch as large as possible. Getting as many people in the room is absolutely crucial. It's the critical mass factor. And you want all of those people who've come in contact with you through your events and your outreaches. All those people that you've made connections with your team, all those people who are deciding to check out your church for the first time to have a great first experience. Part of having a great experience is having people in the room. So put together a strategy on how to get as many people there as possible. The third goes along with the previous one. Let the entire community know that you're here. How are you going to let the community know that you are launching your church? How are you going to let them know what Jesus is doing in and through your church? A couple questions. What does your website and socials look like? This is something we have to take seriously because this is one of the ways that we can have the most impact on showing people who we are. Your website, your socials are the front door to your church. How are you going to encourage and equip your team to invite friends? Are you going to do mailers, social media ads, invite cards, banners trailing behind planes as they fly over your community? I think the answer is all of the above. And it's to come up with a strategy to do as much as you can while putting most of your efforts on the things that are most impactful. And number 4 is working towards sustainability and increasing missional impact for future generations. We want to plant fruitful, sustainable ministries that multiply. In other words, this thing should outlast you. I'm going to pause here and give you a moment to reflect on what you're hearing. So you can pause the video and then resume after you've interacted with the prompts on the screen. Now let's talk about stage 4 benchmarks. Remember, your benchmarks are based on the end goal of financial self-sustainability. So your specific benchmarks may be slightly different from the general baseline I'm going to share here. Don't worry, your coach and conference staff will help you determine your specific benchmarks for each stage. But in general, here's what you want to be aiming for as you move through stage 4 and reach the end of this 4-stage launch process. attendance consistently being over 100, preferably 100 to 120. Number 2, systems maintaining the letter grades of a B+ or A- range. As you lead up to the launch, you want your key ministries to be in the A range or as good as they can possibly be. You want the right leaders in place. You want the right culture in place. And you want the right flow and strategy in place. For us, part of this meant we were renting out a middle school. And so 3 Sundays before we had to launch, we got in the space on Sunday mornings and broke up into our teams. And we wanted to tangibly walk through this space to see how it felt. How are we going to welcome people? What are they going to experience when they walk in? How does your kids' space function? What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the things you have to work with? What's the worship space look like and feel like? This is an incredibly important part of preparing for your launch. I guarantee your space won't be ideal. So let your teams get in the space and strategize how it's going to work. Number 3, you want to be looking for a great facility, one that can accommodate growth up to 200 plus in attendance. And when you're looking for the space, in the perfect world, you would find something that would fit 200 people in it, 200 plus for growth. You need a space that can also have the best kids space possible. So when you're looking for the space, look at community buildings, rec centers, theaters, schools, other churches that maybe have stopped gathering or have smaller gatherings and or are missionally minded and will share their space with you. For many planters, this is the most challenging and difficult stages to find a great place to meet. So I want to encourage you, drive around, pray, ask, build connections, pray and pray and pray and pray until you find the place that Jesus will provide. Remember, he is the architect and the builder of your church. And number 4, a strong online presence. How are you going to have a strong online presence? And are you going to stream your services? Again, I would recommend this because these are the front doors into our church. In this new space we find ourselves in, almost every church has got to do some creative thinking about how we engage people online. How will you stream? What cameras will you use? How will they work in your space? What streaming services will you use? Are you going to house everything on YouTube or your Facebook page? How are you going to push people towards that content? And then number 5, you want to see an increasing number of people coming to Christ and connecting in and with your community. Lastly, you want to continue to see a healthy mix of who's in the room. When you look out over your congregation, you want a rough idea of these percentages. You want a third of people that are missionally minded. These are healthy people that are there for the mission of the church, the vision of the church. You want a third of the people to be formerly de-churched people who you're bringing back to Jesus. And you want a third to be formerly unchurched, that you're inviting them to Jesus to see Jesus for the first time. I'm going to give you one more opportunity here to reflect. Lastly, I want to encourage you. I was told at the beginning of church planning that planning a church will be the hardest and the best thing that you'll do as a pastor. I know I'm 7 years in, but I can attest so far that this is absolutely true. There have been struggles at just about every point in the church planning journey. We have had building issues, we have had staff issues, we've had people issues. And with each issue that comes up, my faith has grown. I have grown as a leader. And more importantly, we've seen Jesus come through time and time again in incredible ways. We've seen people give their lives to Jesus. We've seen their hearts and their minds transformed by Jesus. So yes, if no one's told you yet, planting is hard. But I believe as you take these steps of faith, that it's going to be one of the best experiences of your life. As you step out in faith and watch the architect and the builder grow your church.
Thanks so much, Jamie. So that is the basic overview for Stage 4. You can find Stage 4 in Section 7 of your Well-Conceived Plan, which is one of the assignments you'll need to complete this week. And we'll see you soon for your very last video.